What's going on, people? Welcome back to the channel. KG is back, and it is time for Daniel Farke's press conference reaction. Get a few notes from there. Also want to speak about the big deal, and it is a big deal, that Adidas have decided to re-sign with Leeds United and continue the kit partnership. And I'm going to go into the reasons why they would have done that, even with Leeds United not guaranteed Premier League football next year. Although we should be, right? We should be. But listen, before we get into the video, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and of course, drop your comments and thoughts below. We're going to come back tomorrow with the preview, so that will be on a separate video. These are the notes from today with a bit of interesting team news as well, with one of our key players and a couple of other role players too. Thank you to Stephen Welch, who's become a member of the channel. Big up to you, Stephen, and thank you to all existing members of the channel. Much love for that kind of support. If you want to become a member of the channel, the link is in the description. Now, there wasn't too much in the way of anything with the press conference today, which is why I haven't gone live, because there really wasn't a lot to say. Although what I would say is that there is a bit of a, and I've kind of gone through this before with Dan James, but let me get into the news. Some mixed news, and this is the overall summary. Max Verber is back in team training. He could be involved before the international break, which for me, I know a lot of you don't agree, I think is a good thing. We're going to need him. We're going to need him very soon. We've got a couple of players on 4 yellow cards, and we know we're only injury, suspension away from being a key centre-back down. And if you're slipping in a Max Verber at this level, then it's really good news. Daniel Farke did say, though, that he's not even close to being able to start a game or play 90 minutes. So it is a case of getting him back fit and seeing how he gets on. If he's involved before the international break, that would be good. But I would think that unless anything goes wrong with Joe Rodon or Pascal Struijk, then he probably will leave him out until after the next break, in my opinion. Although it would be good to see him get at least 20 minutes in the tank of regular, of proper championship football, just to get him used to the level. But yeah, good news on Max Verber, potentially back soon, but not for this game against Plymouth. We do have a few question marks, though, and one is Joe Gelhardt, who is basically on the fringes, people. Bamford, adductor, he may not make it for the game. And more concerning for me, though, is Dan James. And this is something I've mentioned before with Dan James, because this isn't like a new thing with Dan. He does have this reoccurring injury, and it does seem to be his hamstring. Now, I think anyone with a pair of eyes can tell you Dan James's best asset that he has is his pace. There's nothing better than Dan James on the break or getting away from players and either getting past them or drawing a foul and getting you up the pitch. And we even saw with him not being 100% fit in the previous game that, he was on a break against 2 defenders, and a fit Dan James takes those 2 defenders out and carries on the run. But he wasn't fit enough to get away. But if his hamstring is still playing up, I don't know if this means it's going to be something long-term or something that he's going to have to manage, but it's very concerning in terms of his fitness, because it just seems every time we get Dan back, he seems to have a little niggle with his hamstring again. And I just hope that it isn't anything long-term, because we need him. Like, he just gives us, where's you got Ramazani, Nonto, who give you that skill, that guile, that ability to weave in between players or make something happen in that way. Dan James gives you the pure pace and power that you need at this level. And you see him, how many times does he get chopped up? I mean, in the last game, he got fouled in the first minute, really, almost taken out. And you need that kind of player, especially at championship level. So it would be a shame if Dan James does miss this out. There is another training session for them to have tomorrow on the Friday, where he'll assess Dan James and Bamford. But it would be a blow to miss Dan James, because for me, if he's fit, he starts against Plymouth. I think he would cause them all kinds of problems if he's fully fit. But if he's not fully fit, then it would be only right to manage him correctly. But do you guys have your concerns about Dan James' fitness at this point? Because this isn't a this season thing. It's going back into last season, much after the last international break, where, he got injured. I think, did he get injured on Welsh duty? Well, he got injured towards the end of the season, and he wasn't the same player. He wasn't the same player. But we'll keep an eye on that one. Hopefully we get some good news of that when the team news comes out on Saturday. Bamford, on the other hand, is Bamford. And look, I'm not going to go into this. It's boring. It's old material now. But, the guy literally played, like, what was it, 4 or 5 minutes against, in our last game. Yes, it's a busted flush. January, we're hearing strong whispers that he's not happy with his role. I would hope that we speed that departure up in January by any means necessary. And even if we have to take a hit and give him a little payout on the 18-month left on his contract, do so. It's just, addition by subtraction at this point. It's becoming not becoming a joke. It's a joke, but the joke is old now. So yeah, we'll move on with that. But Dan James for me is more the concern. But let's hope that we get some good news with him before the weekend. He was asked about Gill Vog and just how he settled in. Daniel gave him a glowing reference and big praise of how he settled in and understanding his role and everything else like that. The reason why I bring him up though is because I do see scope for Gill Vog if he's fit enough to start a game soon. I do see him coming in for possibly Joe Rothwell at some stage and partnering Tanaka until Ampadu comes back. I do think that the potential is there, especially if Rothwell has another couple of games like he's had in the last couple. And listen, it's not like he's been awful, but he hasn't done anything to stand out. And we all know that, unless we had injuries galore, Rothwell would literally be a 5 minute a game player, if that. So I do think that there is scope if Gill Vog continues to impress in training, and it will give Daniel Farke exactly what he wants. And you know what that is, people: a defensive midfield linchpin. That's what he wants. He loves that defense first, attack second. And he was kind of asked about that, and fair play to Popey. I thought it was a brilliant way that he worded the question. He delivered it nicely with a bow, but he said in regards to Plymouth, because Plymouth have been awful this season, and Popey just said, I know that defense is what you built on and everything else like that, which is amazing, but is the onus on you to punish Plymouth this weekend? I'm paraphrasing there, people, but he worded it in that way, is to say, yeah, you love your defense, but surely this weekend we could go for a little, fun. You know what I mean? But Danny Farco was quick to say, look, it's about how we play. We got to stick to our principles. And, as he always does with every team, Plymouth, they started with 10 points in 4 and everything else like that. But realistically, people, and just going by these numbers that Joe Donahue provided, never mind XG, forget all that. Most shots on target, most fast break shots, and highest percent of shots inside the box. One-way traffic this weekend or 1-0 Plymouth. Yeah, we know how that goes. And we'll do score predictions tomorrow, people. But it really is a case of Leeds United should be taking care of business tomorrow. And we move on 3 points onto the next game against Millwall next Wednesday. That's how it should be this weekend. I don't think you shouldn't be settling for anything less. We shouldn't have settled for a point. And it's quite interesting with some of the comments in the last video. And shout out to everyone that watched that one, and just the different opinions about that point in regards to, drawing 0-0 against Bristol City when, it was 11 versus 11. We weren't down to 10 men. We weren't down to 9. The game was in our hands to try and win it, and we didn't do so. But I think that we should have a little bit of fun against Plymouth. Maybe not 4-5, but it should be a very, very comfortable win. But moving on to the news of Adidas re-signing the mighty Leeds United. And the reason why I just want to quickly touch on this, it was announced a couple of days ago, but for me, it wasn't worth a video by itself. So I thought I'd roll it into this one. In terms of this, I think it's just great news, and exactly why I speak the way I do speak about Leeds United, especially in the last video, where I'm saying the point against Bristol City isn't a good one. It's 2 points dropped. And it's quite funny. There was one comment in particular that says they expect us to, the person said he expects us to get top 2, but the point against Bristol City was okay. Well, if you're expecting us to get top 2, you need us to win those games against Bristol City. But the reason why I'm talking about this is because until we go down the road of Leeds United being a average Joe football club, my expectations will always be high. And when we're doing what we've done in terms of keeping the partnership with Adidas and re-upping it for a few years, there was no terms disclosed, but apparently it is for another 2 to 3 year period, and that's without the guarantee of Premier League football, people. And again, Adidas probably have kit deals with people in League 2, League 1, but the point is they're not getting the money that Leeds United will be getting in this kind of deal. So that's why when I talk about this and Leeds United and the reach that it is, it's a global brand. And you look at Sheffield United when they came down. I don't know if Sheffield United wanted to continue with Adidas, but Sheffield United's kit maker now is Era, okay, or Era, whatever that one is, that one from the 90s, that old school one. And I'm sure if we're being real, Sheffield United would have probably preferred to stay with Adidas, but it's about what your club does. And the language in this press release is interesting for me. Let me just enlarge it a little bit more. And it's this bit here. The extension comes after A record-breaking launch for our away kit in the 24-25 season, where we sold 15,000 shirts in the first day alone, bettering all previous Leeds United jersey sales in the first 24 hours. When Adidas get those numbers and they're looking at it going, whoa, they've done this even in their second year of championship football. Imagine if they get back to the Premier League. No, we need to keep hold of this football club. We're not letting this one go. And I think the originals collection went well. Now, I'm not saying we're going to be like Arsenal, have a drop every 3 months, because Arsenal fans go crazy for those drops, and that's why Adidas released so many. But with the originals doing well, the shirt sales doing well, Adidas were never leaving. And when you look at it previously, and these are numbers you can find, Leeds United, I think, is it 6 in the country for shirt sales? Adidas were never going to let that go. And when you figure what they're going to have to pay a championship football club to keep them, whether they could have just let them go, it tells you the volumes of how big this football club is and should continue to be. But of course, it will only get bigger once we go up. That starts with getting 3 points this weekend against Plymouth, right? But that's why I just want to highlight, man, and that's why I speak so passionately about being ambitious for this football club, because all the numbers, all the metrics say that this football club should be in a way better position than it currently is. So until tomorrow, people, where we come back with the preview, that is the show. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, drop your thoughts on anything discussed today, and I'll see you tomorrow with my predicted 11, and we'll see you then. Peace out, people.